Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. This is Sam, and Sam and I worked together for we don't know how many years in the dealership world. And Sam has either been turning wrenches or supervising people that turn wrenches for
About 20 years.
about 20 years. And we're going to do a basic maintenance today on Sam's pastor's tractor. Sam's off today. This is his day off and he's working. But we're going to do basic lubrication on the tractor. And our topic today is 5 things that fail on a tractor, that break on a tractor because we didn't use this, which is grease. We didn't lubricate. And Sam's going to go over those 5 things today. We're going to show most of them being done on this tractor. And we're talking about a tractor and a cutter. Most of us that have a tractor have either a brush hog or bush hog behind it, or like this tractor, a finish mower that we mow grass with. So Sam, starting at the tractor and going back, what are the 5 things you see fail the most that could be prevented with a little bit of this?
The first thing would probably be the loader and the pivoting pins on it. You get squeaks and things not wanting to function right. That would probably be the number one item.
This tractor has no front end loader, but most tractors have a front end loader. And when you think about the front end loader, it goes up and down all the time. A lot of weight, a lot of pressure there. And if you have a failure on a front end loader, it's usually bad, right?
Right. The pins will wear out, the bushings will wear out, and if left long enough or continue to be abused, it'll start eating into the knuckle itself, and then you start talking about having to replace either loader arms or the knuckle itself, weld them, cutting, all that. So
yeah, and if you've never had a failure like that, and I've never have, but I've seen it in our dealership, that's a real expensive fix because you're cutting, you're re-welding.
it becomes quite an ordeal.
Yeah. It's one where the manager gets yelled at because of the size of the bill,
Right.
but it's labor and it's intense.
Right. Second would be your steering knuckles, tie rod ends, whatever you want to call them. Most of them on older tractors for sure have greasable tie rod ends, and and from there it goes to if it's power steering, they'll have a knuckle on the power steering cylinder that's going to be greasable, and then most tractors in the center of it where the axle pivots, there's a grease cert there, usually front and back, that need to be addressed basically every 8 to 10 hours of operation. You need to be greasing your tractor.
Now we back up to the pedals.
Most tractors have a pivoting point somewhere on your clutch pedal, and then your brake rods where the brakes come down off the floorboard. You'll find a grease cert somewhere on those two. If it's a hydrostat, most of them will have a grease spot, so that pedal will be it won't get stuck and it returns back to neutral like it's supposed to.
Now on the steering components and the pedals, if you have a failure there that's a lack of grease, what do you see?
Tie rod ends will get loose. Ultimately, they will fall apart, just like on a car. Everybody's seen those cars there on the side of the road where the wheel's stuck over here and the car's over here. It's an easy preventable item if you just grease it. The tie rod ends are basically anywhere on that drag link, anywhere that an arm is connected to another arm that's pivoting.
And on the pedals, what kind of failure do you see there?
It would be a bushing failure again. It's going to be somewhere that pedal, it's not able to flex back and forth like it's supposed to. It's going to take more effort, or it's not going to return back to its home position. And then you're going to have problems with either a clutch not completely engaging or brake pedal dragging, and then you're burning up brakes. Additionally, the issue would be just to get things to return to neutral or home position as they should be.
Now before we move to the cutter, and those are the 3 major things on the tractor, and we're going to move back to the cutter, I'm going to plug my product. This is Lube Shuttle, and it's a grease gun that I sell on my website. And Sam's got the electric version here, and if you do a lot of greasing, the electric versions are great. But I've got the pistol grip, and this is our most popular seller right here. What the calling card of a Lube Shuttle grease gun is, it's a German-built grease gun. There's a lot of pressure in here, and it uses suction to suck the grease out of the tube and put it where it needs to go. And the tubes, instead of having that plunger that you have to pull back and thread out that nasty tube, are plastic. And when you change tubes, you just push grease up above the top like that and thread it back in, and you're ready to go again. It's a cool way to grease, a lot less nasty and dirty. than your normal grease gun. Now, end of shameless plug for product I sell on my website, and that I got to get that back in there. That kind of made a mess. But Sam, let's go back to the cutter. What do we look for there in service?
First thing that we look for is the PTO shaft, the shaft that comes from the back of the tractor to the implement. You got a U-joint at the front, and then another one where it connects to the gearbox. The bigger the unit, you're liable to have additional drive lines to the different wings to make each one work. Those both have U-joints. There's a grease zerk on them, grease them. Pretty much every U-joint is going to be greasable. A second part would be the way that it attaches to the tractor. There's a little collar of some sort. It's either a pullback collar, a twist collar, or a button. Keep those lubed, and that's going to be some kind of a penetrating oil to get it broke free if it is sticking, and then some kind of oil to keep it lubricated would be the main things. And then some of the shafts have a grease zerk in the shaft for the slide. If you don't keep those where they can slide back and forth, they're going to seize up and lock up. So it's very important to keep those. And if you don't have a grease zerk somewhere down the tube, you'll want to actually take it completely out, grease the inner, slide them back together, make sure they're working, keep them clean. That would be the drive line. The next would be go back into the gearbox itself, making sure that the gearbox is full of oil, not completely to the top. There's a check plug somewhere. Check your owner's manual. Always refer back to it on how they look. But there's usually a plug about halfway up, or a sight glass on the back of them if it's a newer machine, and you'll pull that plug out. Oil should be at the bottom of the hole, and it's almost all of them take an 80-90 weight gear oil, just plain Jane, nothing special, but 80-90 weight is the viscosity you're looking for.
And you'll see more failures if you fill it too full.
Right.
And a lot of people want to fill it all the way to the top, but don't do that.
Right. What'll happen is actually it'll start spitting it out. Most of them have a breather. Mm-hmm. It'll start making a mess, and you'll be pushing oil out the top. And then everybody, well, you got to keep it full. It's trying to blow it out. It actually is causing an overheat issue and then building pressure, and it pushes it out. And then from there, you would go back to your tail wheel, and there's some kind of wheel on the back of the unit that's going to help support the weight of it. If it's a small 3-point mount, it's usually just a center tail wheel. That's just to help support the weight. But there's a grease zerk on that stem, and nobody wants to grease it. And as long as that's pivoting around, it's great. But then that grease will get pushed out, and it becomes dry, metal on metal, produces more metal on metal, and it goes downhill from there. It'll get where it'll lock up, seize up, and those are the tail wheels that you see guys that when they're mowing, they're just making a ditch behind them.
If you're plowing with your tail wheel, what percentage of the time is it lack of lubrication where we're talking about there?
I would say it's probably 90-100% of the time. It is a wear item. It can eventually wear out, but as it will wear out faster if it's not properly kept lubed.
Now, I was visiting you, I think this was after I was out of the dealership world, and you brought me back in the shop and you showed me a bush hog, and it was a bush hog brand that was almost new. I mean, it looked like it came off the factory floor with that tail wheel just completely wore out.
Right.
And it wasn't bush hog's fault.
No. It was definitely a maintenance item. It wasn't lubed, kept greased like it should have been. And once again, it's just a metal tube or bar comes up off the tail wheel, goes into a metal tube. There's no extra bushings, no wear pads. It's just metal to metal, but there's enough room for a layer of grease. And if that grease had been kept in there as it should have been, it would have been prevented. And probably a $400 or $500 repair.
Yep.
Because that whole stem is one unit. You can't replace it without the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that how common is that?
We see it every year. And then the last thing is most of those tail wheels also has a bearing in the wheel itself. There is a grease zerk there, grease it. In any of them, you basically are greasing them until you see a little bit of grease come out, a little bit of new, fresh grease. Then you know you're full and you got clean grease in there.
Okay, so we got 5 items we talked about: your front end loader, your steering components, your pedals, brake and clutch pedal, and then on the cutter we got U-joints and we've got tail wheel. Now on this particular cutter, we've got a 6th that we're going to grease.
Most finish mowers of whatever brand, there's a spindle for every blade that you have, which is what holds the blade. There's a shaft comes up through the top, and this one here's got 3 of them, and you just grease it 4 or 5 pumps. So you know there's no way to really see it, because if you're seeing grease come out there, you're blowing seals out. So there is a way to over grease that one. But the main thing is just get a few pumps in there before you use it. Basically, if you're going to be mowing more than 8 to 10 hours, you need to grease it again.
So it's a great time. A lot of us are not yet mowing. We're getting close, but a great time to get the tractor and the cutter out and get it ready and follow Sam's advice. He knows what he's talking about. He's seen what happens when you don't do it. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
Appreciate you watching my videos. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, go right here. Here's a link to my website and the Tractor Fun Store with unique items for sale for the tractor owner. And here's a couple other videos you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.